You won't believe what I'm about to tell you. Imagine the scene. A commercial building on fire, 47 people trapped on the third floor, firefighters saying it was impossible to get there in time, and then he appears, Zeus, a 3-year-old German shepherd who would do something so extraordinary that it would forever change the way we think about animal courage. This story will make you cry, will make you question everything you know about loyalty, and most importantly, will show you that sometimes heroes come on 4 paws. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell because we have new stories every day, leave your like, and tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. My name is Michael James Patterson, I'm 38 years old, and I've been a firefighter for 16 years here in Portland, Oregon. I work in the search and rescue company, the one that's called in the most critical situations, when lives are hanging by a thread and every second counts. During all these years I've seen things that marked my soul forever, but nothing, absolutely nothing, compares to what happened that morning of April 15th, 2024. It was an ordinary spring Monday. The sky was partly cloudy, that typical Portland weather that keeps everything humid. I had just arrived at the station after a quiet night shift. I was having coffee with my colleagues, talking about basketball, when the alarm went off. At 9:17 in the morning, dispatch received a desperate call. Fire at the Portland Business Center, in the Pearl District, one of the busiest commercial areas of the city. What no one knew yet was that this wouldn't be just another routine call. It would be the day when all of us, experienced firefighters who had seen everything, would learn a lesson in courage from a dog. When we arrived at the location, the situation was catastrophic. The 4-story building was completely engulfed in thick black smoke. The flames had started in the file room on the 2nd floor, the result of a short circuit in the old electrical system. The fire spread with frightening speed, fed by paper documents and the building's outdated ventilation system. But the worst of all, there was an entire group of people trapped on the 3rd floor. Human Resources Manager Sarah Mitchell had gathered 47 employees from the administrative department for a training meeting in the conference room that morning. When the fire alarm sounded, she tried to go down the stairs, but the corridor was already completely filled with smoke. The only option was to go back to the conference room and lock the door, waiting for help. Commander Harrison, who was coordinating the operation, quickly gathered us. The situation was critical. We had at most 20 minutes before the building's structure would begin to collapse. The stairs were impassable because of the fire and smoke. The aerial ladder only reached the 2nd floor. The 3rd floor was over 40 feet high, and the conference room windows faced a narrow interior courtyard, impossible to position equipment properly. That's when something happened that none of us would ever forget. From the middle of the confusion, among the onlookers crowding the security barriers, appeared a magnificent German shepherd. Shiny black and tan coat, athletic build, intelligent and alert amber eyes. He wasn't wearing a collar, but had an ID tag hanging from his neck. The dog came straight toward me, barking insistently. It wasn't an aggressive bark. It was different. It was as if he was trying to tell us something. I tried to move him away from the danger area, but he wouldn't leave my side. He barked, ran toward the building, came back, barked again. "Someone get this dog out of here," Commander Harrison shouted, worried about one more life at risk. But there was something about that animal's behavior that deeply intrigued me. I had experience with rescue dogs, had worked with several K9 units over the years. That German shepherd was trying to show us something. His movements were calculated, precise, almost military. I decided to follow my instinct. I knelt beside him and looked directly into his eyes. "What do you want to show us, boy?" As if he had understood my question perfectly, Zeus, I would later discover that was his name, ran toward a side entrance to the building that we hadn't noticed, a service access door partially hidden by bushes. He stopped in front of the door, barked 3 times, then looked at me as if to say, "Here, stupid human, it's this way." I called Commander Harrison immediately. We examined the service door and discovered that it led to a secondary emergency stairwell, built when the building was renovated 15 years ago. This stairwell wasn't on the old blueprints we had consulted. It was a direct access route to the 3rd floor, and most importantly, it was partially protected from the fire by fire doors. "This might work," said Commander Harrison, analyzing the situation. "Patterson, you and Rodriguez go in this way. Take extra breathing equipment. We have a window of maybe 10 minutes before this stairwell is also overtaken by fire." Zeus didn't wait for orders. As soon as we opened the service door, he ran up the stairs, as if he knew the way perfectly. Rodriguez and I followed him, carrying extra oxygen cylinders and rescue ropes. The smoke inside the stairwell was less than in the rest of the building, but still dense enough to make visibility almost zero. Zeus climbed the steps with absolute confidence, stopping occasionally to make sure we were keeping up. It was surreal. That dog was literally guiding us through a concrete and fire hell. We reached the 3rd floor, and Zeus stopped in front of a heavy wooden door. He barked 3 times again, scratching the door surface with his paws. From the other side, We heard muffled cries for help. It was the conference room where the 47 people were trapped. "Sarah Mitchell!" I shouted, banging on the door. "Fire department! We're going to get all of you out of there." The door was locked from the inside, a security measure Sarah had taken to prevent smoke from invading the space. We asked her to open it, and when the door opened, we were faced with a scene of controlled panic. 47 adults, some coughing violently, others consoling colleagues in shock, all scared but alive. Sarah had done a remarkable job keeping everyone calm and organized, placing wet towels under the door to block the smoke. "We have an evacuation route," I announced, trying to convey confidence. "But we need to be quick and organized. I want you to form a line. Anyone with breathing problems goes first with extra oxygen mask." That's when Zeus did something that still moves me to this day when I remember. He entered the conference room and began circling among the people, sniffing each one of them. He stayed longer beside those who were having more breathing difficulty, barking softly to call our attention. It was as if he was doing triage, identifying who needed priority help. "My God," Rodriguez murmured beside me. "This dog is trained in search and rescue. Look how he's assessing each person's condition." We had identified Zeus as a working dog, probably with military or police training, but we didn't know whose he was or how he had gotten there. At that moment, however, those questions were secondary. Zeus had officially become part of our rescue team. We began the evacuation. Rodriguez stayed at the front of the line, I in the middle helping those who had difficulty, and Zeus took the rear. Like a shepherd guiding his sheep, he made sure no one was left behind. When someone stumbled or hesitated because of fear, he nudged his snout against the person's leg, as if gently pushing them forward. The descent down the secondary stairwell was tense. The smoke was getting thicker by the minute. We could hear the roar of flames consuming other parts of the building. The structure groaned threateningly, signs that it was beginning to collapse. We had to be quick, but we couldn't run and risk someone getting hurt. "Easy. Breathe deeply when you use the oxygen masks," I constantly instructed. "Keep visual contact with the person in front. Don't stop moving." Zeus descended the steps beside the people who seemed most emotionally shaken. There was a man about 60 years old, Thomas Brennan, who worked as an accountant in the finance department. He was visibly terrified. His legs were shaking so much that he could barely go down the steps. Zeus stuck beside him, allowing Thomas to occasionally rest his hand on his back to balance. This gave the man the physical and emotional security to continue descending. We reached the second floor, and the situation worsened dramatically. The stairwell had begun to fill with denser smoke, coming from the floor where the fire had started. The temperature had increased dangerously. We needed to speed up, but we had a problem. One of the employees, Jennifer Watson, 32 years old, was having a severe panic attack. She had stopped in the middle of the stairwell, hyperventilating, unable to continue. I can't breathe. We're going to die here," she screamed in a state of total desperation. Sarah Mitchell, the manager who had kept everyone safe in the conference room, tried to calm her down, but Jennifer was in full crisis. We were losing precious time. That's when Zeus took an action that left us all speechless. The German Shepherd went up the steps to where Jennifer was paralyzed and simply sat in front of her, blocking the way back. Then he did something extraordinary. He began to gently lick her hands, looking directly into her eyes. He wasn't aggressive, wasn't barking or trying to push her. He was offering comfort, connection, presence. Jennifer stopped screaming. Her hands, which were shaking uncontrollably, grabbed onto Zeus's fur. The dog remained completely still, solid as a rock, allowing her to lean on him. Slowly, her breathing began to regulate. "Good boy," Jennifer murmured, tears streaming down her face. "You're a good..." Zeus stood up, looked at her one more time, then began to slowly descend the steps. Jennifer, with her hand still resting on his back, followed him. Step by step, stair by stair, the German Shepherd guided her out of that concrete hell. When we finally emerged through the service door into the fresh air, it was like being reborn. All 47 people were safe. Some needed oxygen therapy, others treatment for smoke inhalation, but all were alive. Commander Harrison and the rest of the team received us with applause and tears of relief. "Patterson, you did it!" Harrison hugged me tightly. "Everyone's safe." "It wasn't me, Commander," I replied, pointing to Zeus, who was sitting calmly on the lawn, observing all the movement. "It was him. Without this dog, we would have lost people today." The ambulances began attending to the survivors. Paramedics checked vital signs, distributed thermal blankets, offered water. It was a scene of organized chaos, typical of emergency operations. In the middle of all this confusion, I noticed something that squeezed my heart. Zeus was sitting alone, away from everyone, trembling slightly. It wasn't from cold or fear. I recognized those symptoms immediately. Extreme exhaustion after adrenaline discharge. That dog had given absolutely everything he had to help us, and now he was paying the physical price. I approached slowly and knelt beside him. Only then did I notice some details that had gone unnoticed in the rush. His paws were burned, probably from entering areas of the building where the floor was scorching. There were superficial burn marks on his snout. He was injured, but hadn't shown pain at any moment during the rescue. "Hey, buddy," I spoke softly, petting his head. "You're the bravest dog I've ever met in my life." Zeus looked at me with those intelligent amber eyes, and for the first time since I saw him, seemed to completely relax. His tail wagged once, weakly, but it was enough to show that he knew the work was complete. I called one of the fire department's veterinary paramedics. Yes, we have teams specialized in treating animals in emergency situations. Dr. Kevin Morrison, a volunteer veterinarian who had worked with us for years, came running with his first aid kit. "Let me see this hero here," said Kevin, already carefully examining Zeus. "Second-degree burns on the paws, possible smoke inhalation. Signs of severe exhaustion. He needs immediate treatment." "Do whatever is necessary," I instructed. This dog saved 47 lives today. While Kevin took care of Zeus, I decided to investigate where that extraordinary German shepherd had come from. The tag on his neck had a name, Zeus, and a phone number. I called immediately. A woman with a hoarse voice answered, clearly emotional. "Hello? Did you find my Zeus? Please tell me he's okay." "Yes, ma'am, we found Zeus. My name is Michael Patterson. I'm a firefighter with the Portland Fire Department. Your dog just saved 47 people from a fire." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then sobs. "I knew it. I knew that's why he ran away. My God, I was desperate looking for him since early this morning." The woman identified herself as Margaret Foster, 54 years old, resident of the Northwest Portland neighborhood. Zeus was her partner, her constant companion since she had retired from the Marine Corps 3 years ago. But there was more to this story. "Officer Patterson," Margaret continued, controlling her tears, "Zeus was my service partner in Afghanistan. He was a military search and rescue dog. We worked together for 7 years in combat zones, finding survivors in bombed buildings, locating wounded soldiers. When I retired, I managed to bring him with me. He has medals of honor for merit, saved countless lives during missions." Everything began to make sense. Zeus's professional behavior, his triage ability, the way he knew exactly what to do in each situation. That wasn't just a smart dog. He was a war veteran with years of intensive training and real experience in life or death situations. "This morning," Margaret explained, "he woke up agitated. He kept going to the door, scratching, whimpering. I thought he just needed to relieve himself. When I opened the door to let him into the backyard, he ran out. He ran so fast I couldn't catch him. I was desperate, searching all over the neighborhood. Never, in 3 years living with me, had he run away like that." "Mrs. Foster," I said, still processing the information, "it wasn't a runaway. Zeus knew about the fire somehow. He went there with a purpose. Animals trained in search and rescue develop a kind of sixth sense for emergencies. He detected the danger and responded to his training." Margaret arrived at the location 20 minutes later. She was a woman of medium height, short grey hair, upright posture typical of military personnel. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw Zeus lying on the veterinary stretcher being treated by Dr. Morrison. "My boy!" She ran to him, kneeling beside the stretcher. "My brave warrior." Zeus, who until then had been quiet during treatment, lifted his head and let out a soft whine upon seeing Margaret. His tail began to wag weakly. He tried to get up, but she gently stopped him. No, stay still. Let the doctor take care of you." Margaret looked at me with an expression of deep gratitude mixed with pride. "Officer, I've trained many dogs during my military career. I've worked with dozens of canine units on missions around the world. But Zeus has always been special. He has a connection with human suffering that goes beyond any training. It's as if he senses when someone is in danger, as if it were his life's mission to protect people." In the days that followed the fire, Zeus's story spread like wildfire. All the local news channels covered the heroic rescue. The 47 people who were saved organized a special ceremony to honor the German shepherd who had risked his own life for them. Jennifer Watson, that employee who had had the panic attack on the stairs, sought me out a week later. Her eyes were red as if she had been crying recently, but there was a gleam of determination in them. "Officer Patterson," she began, her voice choking, "I need to personally thank Zeus. That moment on the stairs, when I thought I was going to die of panic, when my body simply refused to continue, it was him who saved me. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional. He reminded me that I wasn't alone. I organized a meeting between Jennifer and Zeus in the park. Margaret brought the German shepherd, who was already recovering well from his injuries. When Jennifer approached, Zeus recognized her immediately. He approached her calmly and placed his head on her lap when Jennifer sat on the grass. "Thank you," Jennifer whispered, hugging the dog. "Thank you for not giving up on me, but the story doesn't end there." Thomas Brennan, the 60-year-old accountant who had descended the stairs with Zeus by his side, made a decision that would change his life. He sought me out 2 weeks after the fire with an unusual plan. "Officer Patterson," said Thomas, nervously holding an envelope, "I've worked for 35 years in offices, analyzing numbers, living a safe and predictable life. That day, on the stairs, When I thought I was going to die, I had a revelation. Life is too short not to make a difference in the world. He opened the envelope and showed me documents. He had enrolled in the fire department's volunteer program. At 60 years old, Thomas wanted to help in rescue operations, work with rescue dogs, do something that really mattered. Zeus inspired me, he explained. If a dog can be so brave and dedicated, who am I to continue living in fear? I want to honor what he did for me by making a difference in other people's lives. Sarah Mitchell, the manager who had kept everyone safe in the conference room, also underwent a transformation. She sought me out a month later with a proposal for the company where she worked. We're implementing a completely new fire safety program, she told me excitedly. Not just basic training, realistic simulations, alternative evacuation routes, psychological training to deal with panic. That day taught me that preparation saves lives. Her company ended up becoming a reference in fire safety in Portland. Sarah began giving lectures at other companies, sharing not only technical protocols, but especially the importance of staying calm and leading by example in crisis situations. Zeus, for his part, was officially decorated by the mayor of Portland in a ceremony that gathered hundreds of people. He received the Civil Merit Medal of Honor, the first time an animal received this commendation in the city's history. Margaret was by his side, proud, while Zeus sat in perfect posture throughout the ceremony. This German shepherd represents the best of dedication to others, said the mayor in his speech. Zeus didn't think about his own safety. He saw people in danger and responded with extraordinary courage. He's an example for all of us. But for me, the most significant part of this whole story happened 3 months after the fire. The Portland Fire Department, inspired by Zeus, decided to expand its K9 program. They wanted more search and rescue dogs, more training, more investment in this area that had been neglected for years. Margaret was invited to be the program's lead instructor. With her military experience and deep knowledge about working dogs, she would be perfect to train the new generation of K9 units. It's like closing a circle, Margaret told me when she accepted the position. Zeus and I left the battlefield, thinking our mission had ended, but God had other plans. He brought us here to continue serving, in a different way, but equally important. Zeus became the program's official demonstration dog. He helped train new puppies, showing them search techniques, how to behave in dangerous environments, how to interact with people under extreme stress. It was beautiful to see that war veteran teaching the younger recruits. I myself changed after that experience. I began to pay more attention to details, to signs that could indicate problems before they became critical. I started to value intuition, both my own and that of other team members. Zeus taught me that sometimes the best decisions don't come from procedure manuals, but from an innate ability to read situations and respond with courage. Rodriguez, my partner in that rescue, developed a special interest in working dogs. He began studying animal behavior, K9 training techniques, and eventually became one of the department's official handlers of the new K9 units. Man, he told me once during training, working with Zeus that day completely changed my perspective on what it means to be part of a team. He didn't need orders, didn't need supervision. He just knew what to do and did it. He's the kind of partner every firefighter dreams of having. Commander Harrison, always pragmatic and focused on results, became one of the biggest advocates of the K9 program. In meetings with City Hall, he argued tirelessly for more resources, more training, more investment in K9 units. Look at the numbers, he would say, showing statistics. After we implemented our expanded K9 program, our response time in search and rescue situations decreased by 40%. Our success rate increased significantly. These dogs aren't just pets. They're valuable team members who save lives. Sarah Mitchell established a tradition at her company. Every April 15th, anniversary of the fire, they hold a Thanksgiving ceremony. They invite Margaret and Zeus, distribute commemorative medals, and all 47 survivors who still work at the company share how that day transformed their lives. It's not about reliving the trauma, Sarah explained at one of these ceremonies. It's about celebrating the second chance we all received. It's about honoring courage, both human and animal, that saved us that day. It's a reminder that no matter how desperate a situation seems, there's always hope. Jennifer Watson started working as a volunteer at an animal shelter on weekends. She said it was her way of giving back to Zeus and all the animals that make a difference in people's lives. Eventually, she adopted a German shepherd puppy and began training him in search and rescue under Margaret's guidance. When I look at Zeus, Jennifer told me, I see everything I want to be. Brave, dedicated, capable of overcoming fear for the good of others. He saved me from much more than a fire. He saved me from a life of timidity and fear. Thomas Brennan, the accountant who decided to change his life at 60, became an inspiration. He completed volunteer training, then took specialized courses, and eventually became one of the department's first aid instructors. He said that every person he taught to save lives was a way to honor Zeus. People think it's too late to change at 60, Thomas would say in his motivational speeches, but I'm proof that it's never too late to discover your true purpose. Zeus was 3 years old when he saved 47 people. I was 60 when I decided to start making a difference. Age is just a number when you have a greater purpose. Dr. Kevin Morrison, the veterinarian who treated Zeus on the day of the fire, used this case to establish a new treatment protocol for working dogs. He wrote academic articles, gave lectures at veterinary conferences, and helped develop specialized protective equipment for dogs working in risk situations. Zeus reminded me of why I chose this profession, Kevin said. It's not just about healing sick animals, it's about protecting those who dedicate their lives to protecting others. Working dogs deserve the best available medical care, and it's our duty to ensure they receive it. The media continued to be interested in the story. Zeus appeared on television programs, national magazines, even in a documentary about hero dogs produced by a major network. But through it all, Margaret kept Zeus grounded, or rather, paws on the ground. He doesn't need fame, Margaret would say, refusing many of the media exposure offers. He did what he did because that's what he is, a service dog, a protector, a silent hero who doesn't seek recognition. Let's respect that. Even so, Zeus's story became legendary not just in Portland, but throughout the country. Fire departments in other cities began implementing similar programs, inspired by Portland's program success. Zeus became, unwittingly, a national symbol of the importance of working dogs. 1 year after the fire, the 47 people who were saved organized a large reunion. They rented a space in a park, invited all the fire teams that participated in the rescue, and held a barbecue gathering. Zeus was, of course, the guest of honor. It was emotional to see everyone together again. People who were just co-workers that day were now close friends, united by an experience that transcended any normal professional relationship. They had gone through something together that fundamentally changed who they were. You know what's funny? Sarah Mitchell commented to me during the barbecue. Most of us worked on the same floor for years, but barely knew each other. Now we're like family. We meet regularly, celebrate each other's birthdays, support each other in difficult times. A terrible event ended up creating bonds that will last a lifetime. Zeus circulated through the park like a celebrity, receiving affection from everyone. He had gained a little weight. Margaret admitted she spoiled him too much with treats, but still maintained that alert and intelligent look. He was still the same warrior dog, just a little more relaxed now. The children of the survivors were fascinated by Zeus. A little girl about 6 years old, daughter of one of the saved employees, shyly approached Margaret. "Ma'am," she asked in a small voice, "is it true that Zeus saved my dad?" Margaret knelt to be at the girl's height. "Yes, dear, it's true. Zeus helped save your dad and many other people." The girl looked at Zeus with reverence. "So, he's a superhero?" Margaret smiled, petting Zeus's head. "Yes, he is. The best kind of superhero. The kind that doesn't wear a cape, doesn't seek spotlights, but is always ready to help when someone needs it." The girl approached and carefully hugged Zeus. The German shepherd remained perfectly still, allowing the hug, his tail wagging gently. It was a simple moment, but deeply significant. During the reunion, each survivor had the opportunity to speak about how that day had changed their lives. Some spoke about appreciating family more, others about not postponing dreams anymore, some about overcoming fears that had paralyzed them for years. A man named David Chen, a software engineer who was in the conference room that day, shared something particularly touching. "I suffered from depression for years," he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. "There were days when I questioned whether my life had meaning, whether anyone would care if I wasn't here anymore. That day, when I thought I was going to die, when I saw Zeus risking his own life to save us, I realized something fundamental. If a dog can find meaning in serving others, who am I to waste my life?" Since then, I started treatment. I volunteer on a suicide prevention support line, and for the first time in years, I feel truly alive. There was an emotional silence after David finished speaking. Then, spontaneously, everyone began to applaud. Not because of the dramatic story, but because David had had the courage to be vulnerable, to share his struggle, to show that real transformation begins when we're honest about our weaknesses. Margaret wiped tears from her eyes. "You know," she said when the applause ceased, "Zeus has his own scars. He went through horrible things in Afghanistan, saw explosions, lost companions, faced situations that would have broken many dogs. But he chose day after day to continue serving, not because it's easy, but because it's who he is. We all have this choice. We can let our traumas define us, or we can choose to be bigger than them. The reunion ended at sunset, with everyone saying goodbye with long hugs and promises to see each other soon. But before leaving, they did something special. They gathered in a circle around Zeus and, holding each other's hands, held a minute of silence. It wasn't religious. It wasn't formal. It was just a moment of collective gratitude. Gratitude for being alive. Gratitude for Zeus. Gratitude for the second chance everyone had received. In the following months, I saw how Zeus's impact continued to spread. Portland's K9 program became a national model. Cities across the country sent representatives to learn from Margaret and observe training methods. Zeus, even in partial retirement, continued to be a fundamental part of this program. I myself was promoted to captain, partially due to the recognition our department received for the successful rescue. But I knew the real merit belonged to Zeus. He had taught me to trust unconventional signals, to value unlikely partners, to recognize that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places. Rodriguez was also promoted and became the officer responsible for all the department's K9 units. Under his leadership, the program grew from 0 to 8 active teams in just 2 years. Each of these teams was trained by Margaret, with Zeus as K9 mentor. Commander Harrison, who was about to retire when the fire happened, decided to stay a few more years, specifically to oversee the expansion of the K9 program. "I've seen many things in my career," he told me in a private conversation, "but I've never seen anything that illustrated so clearly the value of teamwork, mutual trust, and courage under pressure." Zeus gave us a masterclass in leadership that day. It would be a waste to retire without ensuring this lesson is perpetuated. Sarah Mitchell eventually left her corporate job to dedicate herself entirely to fire safety consulting. Her company, which she appropriately named Zeus Safety Consulting, became one of the most respected in the area. She not only implemented technical protocols, but also trained people about the psychological aspects of emergencies. "What I learned that day," Sarah explained in her presentations, "is that safety protocols are only half the equation. The other half is psychologically preparing people to react correctly under extreme stress." Zeus knew this instinctively. He not only guided us physically out of the building, he gave us emotional confidence to continue when everything seemed lost. Jennifer Watson completed a full K9 training course and became one of Oregon's first certified civilian handlers. Her German Shepherd Thor, whom she had adopted inspired by Zeus, passed with distinction through all certification tests. They now worked as volunteers in search and rescue operations. "Zeus saved me twice," Jennifer told me. "First, literally getting me out of that building. Second, metaphorically, showing me a purpose I never knew existed. Before that day, I was just existing, going to work, coming home, repeating the cycle. Now I'm living with intention." Thomas Brennan, the accountant who changed his life at 60, became a kind of inspirational celebrity. He was regularly invited to speak at events about career reinvention, overcoming self-imposed limitations, and finding purpose at any age. "People ask me if I regret having wasted 35 years in a career that didn't fulfill me," Thomas would say. "My answer is always no. Those 35 years gave me the financial and organizational skills I use now at the fire department. They gave me the maturity to appreciate this second chance. Everything in life happens at the right time. I wasn't ready for this transformation before." Zeus appeared in my life exactly when I was prepared to receive the lesson. 2 years after the fire, something happened that no one expected. Zeus began showing signs of accelerated aging. Margaret noticed he was slower, sleeping more, had less energy than before. A visit to the veterinarian revealed the sad reality. Zeus was developing a degenerative condition common in older German shepherds. "How much time does he have?" Margaret asked the veterinarian, struggling to control her tears. "It's hard to say for sure," replied Dr. Morrison, who had become Zeus's personal veterinarian. "It could be 6 months, it could be 2 years. It depends on how the condition progresses and the quality of life we can maintain." Margaret called me that night, clearly devastated. "Mike," she said, using the nickname that only close people used, "I know he's just a dog, but he's my best friend, my partner, my hero. I'm not ready to lose him." "He's not just a dog, Margaret," I replied firmly. "Zeus is a war hero. He's a lifesaver. He's a teacher who changed the way an entire city thinks about courage and service. You have every right to be devastated." We organized an emergency meeting with everyone who had been impacted by Zeus, the 47 people from the fire teams, the K9 trainers. Everyone wanted to find a way to honor Zeus, while he was still with us. It was Jennifer who had the idea that everyone immediately embraced. "Let's create a fund in Zeus's name," she proposed. "A fund that will finance veterinary treatment for working dogs who need expensive care. That will provide protective equipment for K9 units. That will offer scholarships for trainers who want to specialize in service dogs. Zeus dedicated his life to saving others. Let's ensure his legacy continues saving lives long after he's gone." The idea was received with universal enthusiasm. In 2 weeks, we raised over $150,000. Local companies made corporate donations. The 47 survivors contributed generously. The mayor of Portland authorized an official city contribution. Even people who had never met Zeus personally but had been touched by his story sent donations. The Zeus Legacy Fund was officially established 3 months after the diagnosis. Margaret was named president of the board, with Sarah Mitchell as vice president. Rodriguez, Commander Harrison, and other community members completed the board of directors. "This is bigger than any one of us," Margaret said at the fund's launch ceremony. "Zeus showed us that an individual, no matter how unlikely, can make an extraordinary difference in the world. This fund is our way of ensuring that this lesson is never forgotten." Zeus was present at the ceremony, although clearly more fragile than before. He sat beside Margaret throughout the event, that same impeccable military posture, but you could see it cost him energy. Even so, when children approached to pet him, he always wagged his tail gently. In the following months, Zeus's condition gradually worsened. He stopped participating in training, then stopped taking his daily walks, eventually spent most of his time sleeping in his favorite bed in Margaret's living room. Margaret took care of him with absolute dedication. She adapted the entire house to facilitate his movement. She prepared special meals that were easy to digest. She spent hours just sitting beside him, stroking his fur, telling stories of their missions together in Afghanistan. "He was my protector for so many years," Margaret told me during one of my visits. "Now it's my turn to protect him, to ensure his last days are comfortable, full of love, worthy of the hero he's always been." The 47 people from the fire established a visitation schedule. Each week, someone different went to Margaret's house to spend time with Zeus. They brought special treats, told stories about how their lives had changed, simply stayed present with him. Jennifer and Thor visited regularly. Thor, still young and full of energy, initially tried to play with Zeus, but over time he seemed to understand that the old German shepherd wasn't well. He began to simply lie beside Zeus, offering silent companionship. "It's as if Thor knows," Jennifer observed, "as if he recognizes that Zeus is a teacher, a mentor, and is showing respect." Thomas Brennan visited every Monday. He read to Zeus stories of hero dogs, adventure tales, even passages from the Bible about loyalty and service. He said he didn't know if Zeus understood the words, but felt the dog appreciated the sound of his voice. "Zeus taught me that it's never too late to be brave," Thomas would say, gently stroking Zeus's head. "Now I'm here to be present with him. It's the least I can do." On an October afternoon, almost 3 years after the fire, I received a call from Margaret. She was crying. "Mike, I think the time has come. Zeus hasn't eaten in 3 days. He can barely get up. Dr. Morrison said there's nothing more we can do. It's time to let him go." My heart tightened. "What do you need?" "I want it to be at home, with all the people he loved around. I want his last moments to be full of love, not in a cold clinic. Can you help organize this?" "Of course, we'll do something worthy of him." In the following 48 hours, we discreetly coordinated with everyone. Dr. Morrison agreed to go to Margaret's house to perform the procedure. The 47 people from the fire were informed. The fire teams received the news. Everyone wanted the chance to say goodbye. On the scheduled day, Margaret's house was full, but strangely quiet. It wasn't a morbid atmosphere. It was reverent. Zeus was lying in his favorite bed in the middle of the living room, surrounded by all those whose courage had touched. Margaret was sitting on the floor, Zeus's head in her lap. She gently stroked his ears, whispering words that only the two of them understood. Zeus was weak, his breathing irregular, but his eyes still maintained that characteristic intelligence. One by one, people approached to say goodbye. Some spoke, others just touched his fur, some cried silently. Zeus, even in his debilitated state, seemed to recognize each visitor. His tail wagged almost imperceptibly. When it was my turn, I knelt beside him and gently held his paw. "Hey, buddy," I began, my voice breaking. "You saved so many lives, changed so many destinies. The world is a better place because you existed. Rest now. You fulfilled your mission with honor." Jennifer approached with Thor. The young German shepherd lay beside Zeus, placing his head on the veteran's flank. It was a powerful image, one generation passing the torch to the next. Thomas Brennan recited a prayer he had written especially for the occasion. "Lord, thank you for Zeus, for his courage when we were afraid, for his strength when we were weak, for his loyalty when we felt lost. May his spirit continue inspiring us to be better, to serve more, to love more deeply. Amen." Sarah Mitchell read a letter signed by all 47 survivors. "Zeus, Dear friend, you entered our lives in our darkest moment and brought light. You showed us that true courage isn't the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. You taught us that the greatest form of love is putting others' safety before our own. We will carry these lessons for the rest of our lives. Your legacy will live on in every life we touch, in every moment of courage we find, in every act of selfless service we perform. Thank you, Zeus. Thank you for everything. Dr. Morrison waited patiently until everyone had their chance to say goodbye. Then, with tears streaming down his face, he prepared the injection that would allow Zeus to depart in peace. Margaret, he said softly, whenever you're ready. Margaret took a deep breath, fighting to find strength. She looked into Zeus's eyes one last time. My brave warrior, she whispered. My best friend, you served with honor. You saved so many. Now, you can rest. I love you, Zeus. I will always love you. Zeus looked at Margaret with those amber eyes that had seen so many extraordinary things. For a moment it seemed he was trying to communicate something. Then, with tremendous effort, he slightly lifted his head and licked Margaret's hand one last time. It was his last act of service, of comfort, of love. Dr. Morrison administered the medication. In a few seconds, Zeus's breathing became slower, softer, and then, surrounded by love, the hero who had saved 47 lives departed in peace. The silence that followed was absolute. 50 people in a room and you could hear a pin drop. Then, starting low and growing in volume, someone began to clap. Others joined in. Soon, we were all applauding, not in celebration, but in respect, in honor, in deep gratitude for an extraordinarily well-lived life. Margaret remained on the floor, holding Zeus, crying silently. No one tried to rush her. She deserved this time. They both deserved it. Eventually, with Dr. Morrison's help, we prepared Zeus for his final rest. Margaret had chosen cremation, with the ashes being divided into 2 parts. Half would be kept by her. The other half would be placed in a memorial urn at the Portland Fire Department station in the Hall of Honor, where we kept tributes to fallen firefighters. It was the first time an animal received this honor, but no one questioned it. Zeus had served alongside firefighters. He had saved lives like any firefighter. He deserved this recognition. Zeus's funeral was held a week later. It wasn't a small private event. It was a public ceremony in Portland's largest park, with more than 2,000 people present. Firefighters came from neighboring cities in their full formations. K9 units from across the state attended with their human partners. All 47 people from the fire were there, many accompanied by families that had grown since that day. The mayor gave a moving speech. Military officers who had served with Margaret and Zeus in Afghanistan traveled to pay their respects. Children from local schools sang songs they had composed about Zeus. But the most powerful moment came when Margaret stepped up to the podium. She was visibly emotional, but maintained composure as she spoke. Zeus wasn't perfect, she began, surprising some people. He stole food from the table when he thought I wasn't looking. He had an irrational fear of thunder. He got anxious when I left the house. He was, in many ways, just an ordinary dog. She paused, looking at the crowd. But when it mattered, when lives were at stake, when people needed help, Zeus transcended his ordinary limitations and became extraordinary. And isn't that what we all can aspire to? Not perfection all the time, but courage when it matters. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Not being heroes in all situations, but being present when someone needs us. Her words resonated deeply with everyone present. Zeus taught me that heroism isn't about being invincible. It's about being vulnerable and choosing to serve anyway. It's about recognizing that you can get hurt, can fail, can even die, and deciding that another person's life is worth that risk. That's the lesson Zeus leaves for all of us. Margaret ended her speech with a request. Don't remember Zeus just as a dog who saved people from a fire. Remember him as a reminder that within each of us exists the capacity to make an extraordinary difference. Honor his memory by being brave when it's difficult, being kind when it's easier to be indifferent, serving when it would be more comfortable to stay safe. That's Zeus's true legacy. The ceremony ended with an honor guard, a formation of firefighters and K9 officers who rendered final salute to Zeus. It was simultaneously sad and beautiful, a farewell worthy of a hero. In the years that followed, Zeus's impact continued to expand. The Zeus Legacy Fund grew to over $1.5 million and helped hundreds of working dogs across the country. We installed a bronze statue of Zeus at the entrance to the Portland fire station. Local children frequently leave flowers and toys at the feet of the statue. Sarah Mitchell wrote a book about the fire and rescue, with all profits going to Zeus's fund. The book became a national bestseller and was eventually adapted into a documentary that won awards at film festivals. Jennifer Watson and Thor completed over 200 search and rescue missions, saving dozens of lives. She credits everything to Zeus. Every time I go out on a mission, I ask, what would Zeus do? That always guides me to the right decision. Thomas Brennan, now 63 years old, continues active in the fire department. He became a mentor for older volunteers who want to contribute, showing that age is never a barrier to making a difference. Rodriguez built the most respected K9 program in the Northwest. There's a plaque at the training center that says, Zeus Standard, a constant reminder of the level of excellence all teams should seek. Margaret continues training K9 units, now over 70 years old. She adopted another German shepherd, Apollo, who is following in Zeus's footsteps, but she's quick to say there will never be another Zeus. Zeus was unique, she explains, not because he was genetically superior or had better training, but because he had something rare, a heart that truly understood the meaning of sacrifice. We can train skills, but we can't train that kind of soul. I myself, now commander of the department, took Harrison's place when he finally retired. I keep a photo of Zeus in my office. It's from the day of the decoration ceremony, with Zeus sitting in perfect posture, looking directly at the camera with those intelligent eyes. When new recruits enter the department, one of the first stories they hear is Zeus's, not as a distant legend, but as a real standard they should aspire to. I tell them Zeus was 3 years old when he saved 47 people. I tell them he was injured but didn't show pain. I tell them he could have stayed safe outside but chose to enter the danger. And then I ask them, if a dog can have that courage, that dedication, that commitment to saving lives, what's stopping us? The answer, they discover, is nothing. Absolutely nothing but our own self-imposed limitations. Zeus wasn't just a dog. He was a teacher, a leader, a living example that size, species, background, or circumstances don't define what you can achieve. What defines it is choice. The daily choice to be better, to serve more, to love more deeply. Today, 5 years after that day when a German shepherd entered my life in the most dramatic way possible, I look back with deep gratitude. Zeus saved 47 lives that April day, but his real impact goes far beyond that. He completely changed how Portland thinks about service, courage, and possibility. How many lives were touched by the people Zeus inspired? How many courageous decisions were made because someone remembered his story? How many fears were overcome because someone thought, if Zeus could, I can too? Zeus's true legacy cannot be measured in numbers. He lives on in every act of selfless courage, in every moment when someone chooses to help a stranger, in every decision to place the common good above personal comfort. He lives on in Thor and the other dogs being trained to follow in his footsteps. He lives on in the firefighters who entered danger to save lives. He lives on in the 47 people who carry his lesson in each day of their second chances. And perhaps most important, Zeus reminded us of something many had forgotten, that heroism isn't about being perfect or invincible. It's about being imperfectly brave. It's about being afraid and acting anyway. It's about seeing someone in need and deciding that doing something, anything, is better than standing still. This isn't just the story of a dog who saved people from a fire. It's the story of how an extraordinary being reminded us of what it means to be truly human, of how the purest loyalty has no words, but actions, of how the deepest love is demonstrated not in grandiose words, but in silent sacrifice. Zeus lived only 6 years, but in that short time he touched more lives and caused more positive impact than many of us will achieve in decades. He proved that it's not about how long you live, but about what you do with the time you have. So when you face a moment that requires courage, when you see someone needing help, when you have to choose between safety and service, remember Zeus. Remember the 3-year-old German shepherd who didn't think twice before running into a burning building. And then ask yourself, if Zeus could, why can't I? That's the question that continues echoing, not as judgment but as invitation, an invitation to be braver, to serve more completely, to love more selflessly. Zeus is no longer physically with us, but his spirit, his lesson, his example, these live forever. In every rescue dog that saves a life, in every firefighter who enters danger, in every ordinary person who makes the extraordinary choice to help a stranger. Zeus's legacy is this, that within each of us, no matter how unlikely, exists the capacity to be heroic. All we need is to have the courage to respond when life calls us to serve. And that, in the end, is the most important story. Not about a dog who saved 47 people from a fire, but about how that dog saved much more than that. He saved our faith in goodness, our belief in courage, our hope in humanity. Zeus, wherever you are, know that you were, are, and always will be our hero, not just for the 47 lives you saved that day, but for the countless lives you continue saving through your example. Rest in peace, brave warrior. Your mission was fulfilled with honor, and your legacy will live forever.